My name is Hamid Layar, but I go by the name Young Jihadi.
Young
On
Jihadi.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Um, I'm based in Kuwait, but I'm trying to get the hell out because I have a lot to say. I'm a rapper, and I have a lot to say about society here in Kuwait and a lot of the corruption that goes on and how man there's a lot to talk about, and I'm very influenced right now.
Let me ask you something. When you think about reality, this is the topic. Do you think there is a reality?
Well, yeah, what we define as reality exists. I mean,
Right.
even if
Objectively, it's something that all of us share, right?
I'm not sure if you like strip reality of all the consciousness,
Yeah. The only
there will be
yeah the
anything.
only
But
the tricky thing is that um, we have our brains, and the brain is. Well, I work in artificial intelligence. That's the
mhm.
reason I asked this question.
I see you.
Um,
You think about a lot of stuff, and you have ways of verbalizing that. So I'm very interested to hear what's on your mind now.
yeah, Kuwait is a very conservative society. Um, a lot of people using the name of Islam to shame and to basically either brainwash or traumatize their kids for life. A lot of Kuwaiti kids my age are seeing family as a bad word now. This isn't really
As a response, so if I understand correctly, like your country's dominant religion is Islam, right?
Yes, yes,
And
and
the kids are
I'm
like
fighting
doing a
for.
counter, are being part of the counter culture against that.
yes, 100%. No, it's very few that are as open as me, in the sense that I'm basically screaming for people on social media to judge me. I'm definitely not hiding any of this, and it's rare to find people like that, and that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm acting this way. That's why I'm so nonchalant about what I tell my fans and what I put out there. Um, I think that's something that my fans respect me for, and people who hate me even more for. So um, it's a good strategy so far. Um, most kids are like me, but don't show it. Like I have a lot of relatives who are way more liberal than I am, but for some reason I'm the devil in the family.
So, with artificial intelligence, I'm trying to summarize, one main realization that you realize is that whatever an entity, a thing that can think, knows, is only based on what data or information is fed to it, right?
Mm.
So for us, it's our eyes, our skin, our nose. We have our senses, and the senses send signals to the brain, and that's the only reason you feel it a certain way. But the thing is, not everyone feels everything the same way, and not everyone sees things the same way. But we can point to it and say that thing is there, right? When I say, "Hey,
Well,
this
that's why
cup is under,"
for me, like objective reality, I think it's a spectrum. Like you can get more objective if we all agree that we
no,
are experiencing something, and we sort of regularly and like it's a stable reality, a stable objective thing. Like how
right, right,
something
right,
tastes, it's probably different for you and for me. Because we've grown accustomed to interpreting tastes in a different way. But for example,
yeah,
the fact that the sun rises, for instance, I mean that the sun rises, we're going to agree on that pretty much
yeah,
unanimously. So
right,
I would
right,
say it's not just subjective or objective; it's like a scale. And if you were to like get rid of all the subjective human experience, you would still have. Well, you would need to have a god or like an external perceiver, but you would still
yeah,
like that. That's the most objective you can get.
yeah. So there's an interesting thing about so this is about the truthhood of something, right? Like how true is something, right? Or how
Yeah.
much is
When we talk
something
about
actually what?
when we
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about objectivity, yeah, I think so.
yeah. So the idea behind truth is there's three levels of truth, right? And it's not that there's three separate truths.
Mm.
There's three levels of truth, One is the subjective. It's based on entirely on the observer, right? Basically, when we look at the same color, we can both call it blue, but the actual color that is in the head is not the same color. But you know the same color that you're referring to outside of your body.
All right.
And you call it, so we call it that one color. So now the thing is, what a subjective truth is that you're not lying to yourself. That is just how you experience the world, right? And that's the subjective truth. To you, it's the truth, and you're not lying. And so if multiple people have the same subjective truth, that is what we call objective.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If everyone is doing that and everyone is experiencing...
If we agree on a certain subjective, if the subjective is constant enough, we call it objective.
Right. Exactly. And then you have another level, which is a hypothetical one, which is absolute truth. And it's a very debatable one because it's like we don't know if there's an absolute truth, right? So when I ask, what is reality, I wonder if there is an absolute reality or only a reality that people or things on Earth can experience, but maybe there's something in some other galaxy that can experience more than us, and we're only seeing a part of it.
I think we definitely see reality through our own little prisms. And if you wanted to get rid of the prisms, if you wanted to get rid of those lenses, you would end up with, you would have to end up with a god, like whatever we would call, because even then you could go a step further and say, okay, well, this god is definitely a lens through which they view, or whatever civilization can see reality in like 5D.
Or if
they still are a lens. So you can always go one step further and ask, okay, well, how are they subjective?
Right. Well, everything. I mean, even if, here's this thought experiment: a rock.
We have a wave of Islamophobia. Like, okay, their culture is different. Like, they don't fit with us. And I'm trying to explain to them, like, the people coming there are not like what you think they are. When I think of young people running from those countries, I think of like somebody like you, like who wants change, who's not a piece of a puzzle in their society.
Yeah.
Who's like,
there's a concept here in Kuwait amongst the few of us that are left, is that all the educated people leave. Nobody wants to change the country. They all just want to get the hell out and forget that they were even born here. And I don't blame them. It's really in bad shape right now. The country is almost being bled dry financially. Our voice means almost nothing. Half of our parliament is our puppets. It's gross. It's like the best way to describe our socio-political situation is gross.
Everything you just said. If you switch out any of the countries, well, at least if you can say the same things about Serbia.
You don't typically think of a rock as something that is sentient, that is thinking about, I have to do this and that, and maybe this will happen. They're not really thinking like humans. They don't think at all.
Not as far as we know.
Thinking. Right. As far as we know. So, but they do experience, right? They are subject to gravity, right? They are subject to certain things that, like a rock, is subject to subatomic particle interactions. Right, like there's just things that happen.
But I think you're using the word differently than what you described before, because if you're talking about AI, you have input, you have output, you have processing of information, which becomes like data for that subject that is experiencing, or at least communicating with, reacting to the outside world.
There's one way you can say this is that it isn't that a rock does not process data, and that an AI processes data. That's not the biggest distinction. It's the level of processing data. Because if a rock did not process data, a rock could not fall. Like it still obeys the laws of gravity. It still obeys the laws of, there's universal laws that exist, right? It still obeys the laws of the molecules and the type of rock.
Okay, let me hit you back with a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Let's say you have a video game, right? And this video game runs on a processing unit. And we would definitely agree that this processing unit processes data. Would a model, a 3D model of a rock falling inside of that game, could you say that it's processing data? I don't think so. I think
what would be processing? The rock itself?
Yeah, the rock inside this video game. So the 3D model of a rock.
That's debatable. Yeah, that's debatable, because when you say that, when you say that the let's say a graphics processor, let's just say, right? If the graphics processor is processing information, the graphics processor is just in the universe. Is it actually processing?
Exactly. Yeah, you can go steps back. Right.
That's basically what I'm pointing out. And the only real distinction you can make out of it in the most technical way is that if you agree that a graphics processing unit or a processing unit, right, a CPU, is processing data, then you also have to say that everything is processing data, but the CPU is processing data in a more organized, in a more complex way.
So the same way you would say that a rock inside a game is not processing, it is being processed. So could we say that a rock in our world is not really processing?
I wouldn't say that the rock is not processing that, because if you say that the rock is not, if you're saying that everything inside a game is not processing any of that data, right? Then we can also say that the graphics processing unit isn't processing this. It's just following the laws of the universe.
Yeah, that depends on how far away you move, because I could say that I'm processing data, but
but you are, yeah.
Am I? If I'm just like a 3D model inside of a virtual reality that exists, I'm just a rock compared to the reality, you know?
Right. The container that is containing us, right? And yeah, that's a good question. You know, I can't say if we are assuming that a graphical processing unit is processing data, then we're also assuming. By the way, I am a computer scientist, and so
I'm a YouTuber.
And I don't want to speak from something where I'm like, hey, I know better, right? I just mean I'm using ways of thinking about this in that sense, so that we're not, you know, I'm not just throwing information in there.
Complacency is patriotic. That's the biggest problem with this country. It's that the second you speak up, all of a sudden you're anti-Kuwait, you're anti our culture. I believe we should bring our culture to the future instead of letting it anchor us in the past.
Exactly. You know? Like not fight with our past, not like try to reinforce what was, but like take the best parts of it and make it into the future, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Kuwait, the reason that I'm so frustrated is because Kuwait could be something great. Kuwait could really like kick Dubai's ass, like financially speaking. Like Dubai, the only reason it's growing is because it welcomes these new concepts into its country. Yeah, sure, the locals aren't happy, but they can't complain. Look at how much money the government is making them, you know? Like how, I don't know if they're getting a piece of it like Kuwait, but
I doubt it.
Think about it. Yeah, no, if they had Kuwaiti system, oh my God, then they'd really be the best. I think what we need as a country is we need to welcome these new concepts. We need to legalize alcohol. We need to have a nightlife. We need to welcome expats into our country, make them feel like they can be safe and they are appreciated. This country, I swear to God, was built by expats, and the amount of racism that you'll find in Kuwait is astronomical. I swear to God, for them, it's like that. These are our slaves. They're lucky to be here. Like that's the mindset. We're paying for their families. And we're the sole reason that they are capable of survival. They should be grateful that they're here. That's their mindset. Even though these people built this country, without them, we wouldn't know how to wipe our own asses.
What about women? What's your stance on women? Can we talk about your like what you said before? Like
no, that's not my story. But
okay.
Yeah, no, dating is almost non-existent here in Kuwait. It's almost all arranged marriages. And the people who do date are scummy because that's the type of people that are willing to go against their families, you know, because families have such a strict control on their kids that there's no like spectrum. There's no spectrum of sexuality. There's no spectrum of, okay, I'm a good girl, but I am sexually active. That doesn't exist here. It's very rare. Usually it's, I'm a good girl. I spit on any guy trying to get my number, trying to just talk to me, which, I mean, I don't blame them. Guys here are gross. But because of that, the second they lose their virginities, the off switch is in their brain, and now they've considered themselves whores. the
So
stigma
there's
of
no like
being
healthy,
virgin,
there's no
the
healthy
way that
sexuality.
everybody's
There's just like nothing, virginity or being a whore, right?
exactly. It's like because they of all the self-imposed shame that comes with this culture. Like, oh my goodness, I lost my virginity. What an idiot I am. Okay, I must be a whore. And then they just take 8 dudes at the same time. What the fuck? It's like I swear it's so sad. Like, and then it reinforces the old heads what they think. See, she slept with one dude and now look how crazy she became. So then it proves these old heads right. When in truth, if we just get rid of the stigma and we just make sure that if I feel comfortable enough with you and I feel a connection with you, I will sleep with you. But you need to work for it. You need to, and guys need that too. Guys in Kuwait are too desperate. They're scaring these girls off. It's embarrassing, I swear.
Serbia. All right. Well, your English is quite impressive.
I feel that's a compliment, but I think it's condescending, isn't it?
And you're using the right words.
Rubbing in my face, that shit's illegal.
But wait, you're smoking weed, right?
No, I'm not smoking weed in Kuwait.
Okay, whatever.
Astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah. That's haram. It's haram.
And so when we're saying that a rock exists, right? When you're saying processing, you're speaking from the perspective that something is generated that was not already there out of the processor, right? The processor is generating something that wasn't already there. And
sort of interpreting in a way, right?
Yeah.
That we call interpreting data.
Right. Yeah, I guess, yeah. So the rock in the game, typically, I think intuitively, you would not think of the rock as something that is processing data. You would think of it as what is the byproduct of data that is already processed, right?
Right.
And the only thing is it has to process data, because if it doesn't process data, it can't come into existence. Meaning it only maintains its existence from interacting with the processor itself. Meaning nothing is ever by itself. So the way of thinking of a byproduct being completely removed, or maybe not removed, but separate as a separate entity from the container that it is in, is a flawed way of thinking of what processing data is, right? Because for a rock to be a rock, it has to still run by the same rules that the universe has for it. Now, the thing is, there are some things that don't use physical properties, but use properties of the universe, such as dark matter, for example. It functions. We know it functions. It still interacts with gravity, for example, right? So it's processing gravity, but it isn't processing the other parts of a physical world.
Mm-hmm.
But we know its existence is there because it processes one of the many things that this universe may have. So the fact that it is taking an input and creating some output is what means that it is actually processing that data.
Okay, yeah, I can get behind that terminology.
Maybe not intentionally. Yeah, maybe not necessarily intentional.
I'm okay with broadening my definition of processing to include rocks as well. But what's our real world implication? Like, not our real world, but like the common experience that us humans share. How do we use this sort of interpreting lens?
Sure. So we don't exactly know what anything really like in the most objective way. We don't exactly know what anything really looks like, but we have a mapping, right? I'm not sure if you're familiar with the idea of like mapping. So basically, like, let's say you have a phone book, right? And in a phone book, you have many names, okay, many companies or whatever, okay? Each name, let's say you assign it to a number, okay? One person will use one system and they say, well, Alice is number 1. Bob is number 2, whatever, right? And so they have a whole book of like numbers, right? And so the thing is, in their experience, the person who is using this mapping, they're only referring to, they're referring to the name Alice, but in their mind, they're only seeing the numbers, okay? Or maybe you don't have to map it to numbers. You can map it to colors, right? Like, oh, Alice is red. Bob is blue. George.
Can I try to sort of reiterate in my own metaphor and tell me if I'm understanding the correctly. So let's say I have a cup, right, and I have like 4 points of light sources, right? It would cast 4 shadows. And if we just don't look at the cup, we look at the 4 shadows, all of those shadows would be giving us some form of this cup. But you would have to like sort of, the way you interpret those shadows is how you get to the idea of what the cup really looks like. Is that sort of...
That's a very good way to put it. Yes, that's a very good way to put it. So you can still refer to the cup, right? Just like everyone can refer to the cup, but not everyone is going to be seeing the same shadows.
Exactly.
The fact that I'm speaking out to begin with in such a blatant and like casual way, like it comes naturally to me, I think that's what will really motivate the youth to speak up themselves, to realize that shit, this guy's pulling it off, maybe we can do that too. You know, I wanna give them that push that there is a message we can get behind. I want to give them a tangible movement, so a way we can all organize. Because wallah al-azim, the biggest problem in this country is that, and the biggest curse for people like us is that we believe we're alone. It's very hard to find people like us just randomly. It's really like catching a Pokemon, I swear. Like finding like collecting the Infinity Stones is having a full friend group of open-minded people.
Look, people in my country say that Muslim people coming here would rape their wives. I think you would have something to teach my Serbian fellow men about respect for women.